Director, Into University Partnerships, Mr. Ravi Lama, President, AMCHA Mauritius, members of the panel, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. Good evening, good afternoon, and we are very happy to welcome you to this US-focused event today. As many of you are probably aware, the USA is a world leader in education and has had the maximum number of universities featuring the top 100 in the world. The total number of international students in the US, colleges and universities has reached an all-time high. And we have now more than 1.1 million international students in the year 2023-24. This represents a 7% increase from the previous academic years. However, what many do not know is the number of excellent US universities, which are not as famous as the Ivy League, but yet they provide high-quality education at affordable prices. Today's event will highlight several of these universities, which not only provide a great education, but also offer very generous scholarships. We will start with a panel discussion on advantages and opportunities of studying in the US. Our panel consists of eminent US alumni and will be moderated by Mr. Ravi Lama, President, AMCHA Mauritius. Ravi will introduce the panel when we start the discussion. Before this, may I please request Dr. Jonathan Kohler for his remarks.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. Hi, my name is John Kohler. I'm the Public Affairs Officer at the U.S. Embassy, so I work with a fantastic team in the embassy promoting U.S. educational opportunities in the United States. Just a quick note before I begin, Ambassador Sergeant sent his regrets he wasn't able to make it this afternoon and join us today. Yes, is that good? All right, that's better, okay. Ambassador Sergeant just sent his regrets he wasn't able to make it this afternoon. So I wanted to just thank you all for coming. I know that the United States sometimes can seem like it's very far away, and it's also can seem very expensive, but there's a number of opportunities that I think is worth considering in the U.S. As our host has just explained. We're here today to learn about studying in the United States, applying to U.S. institutions, securing scholarships and financial aid, and also learning about some of the cultural experiences that you can have living and studying on an American university campus. As you might be aware, the United States has one of the best systems of higher education in the world, with more than 4,000 accredited colleges and universities offering programs in almost every imaginable field of study. And we're seeking the best and the brightest students to take advantage of these opportunities. So just put simply, American universities and colleges are looking for students just like you. And at the same time, we know that choosing the right school is difficult. And some of you might be worried about how you'll pay for your education, how you might be able to fund it. And today we'll be able to reveal some of the opportunities for finding academic and financial scholarships and meeting some of your social needs. You'll also learn about application procedures and how to apply for financial aid as a Mauritian student. So there are hundreds of young Mauritian students currently studying in the United States, and some of them who've already studied in the US and returned back to Mauritius. It's a pleasure to be able to welcome some of you to join our panel in just a few moments. Some of them are with us today. Our Education USA advisor, Dr. Info also is one of them. One of the best ways to learn from them is to ask questions. So today during the panel, please don't be shy. And also, show us your self-confidence. If you work hard and you believe in your abilities, you can be one of the next cohort of Mauritius students to study in the United States. One of the best resources available to you, certainly campus abroad, but also at the Education USA advisor at the US Embassy. Education USA is a network sponsored by the Department of State with over 425 independent student advising centers in over 178 countries. And we have a global network that offers the most up-to-date information about educational opportunities and also post-secondary education in the United States. So please do, after the session, feel free to stop by our Education USA Advising Service at the U.S. Embassy in Fort Lewis. All our services are free of charge, and we offer one-on-one appointments with our Education USA advisor. And we also have opportunities to talk to some of our alumni after the session. We're excited to share their educational journey with you. Many of them are here today to share your questions, answer questions, clear your doubts, and share about their cultural experiences. So thank you all again for taking your time on your busy day to join us, and wish you a productive discussion.
Thank you for your remarks. May I now request Ravi Lama to take over the proceedings. For those of you who do not know Ravi Lama has 25 years experience in advertising, marketing, branding, PR, and the media. He is known for his magical touch when helping his clients find solutions. He has been on the boards of several institutions like the Mauritius Qualifications Authority, MQA, and the Mauritius Institute of Directors, MIOD. He has been on the Business and Management Faculty Board of the Université de la Mascareign since 2014. Ravi helps set up AmCham, American Chamber of Commerce, and is the current president serving his second term. Over to you, Ravi.
Thank you so much, Chitra. Before I begin, I just wanted to share with you a story from the US. While Jonathan was speaking about it, I said, let me share the story with you. A Chinese student went to the US, and when he was seeking admission, filling out the forms. Now, because of the language barrier, the lady there said, what is your date of birth? He didn't understand. And she tried everything, trying to make him understand that I need your date of birth. There were students passing by, they all joined in and tried to help out, trying to explain to the Chinese student date of birth. Nothing happened. And now the crowd started getting bigger. Finally, one Indian student landed up and said, what is the problem? So we said, we're trying to make this Chinese student understand date of birth. He said, very simple, no problem. He looks at the Chinese student and says, happy birthday to you. So the guy says, birthday? Yes. Good afternoon, Dr. Jonathan Cole, and distinguished ladies and gentlemen, and the Campus Abroad team. It is both my honor and pleasure to welcome you to this panel discussion on the advantages and opportunities of studying in the US. This event brings together esteemed experts and stakeholders passionate about education and the transformation opportunities it offers. As the president of AmCham in Mauritius, it is a privilege to facilitate this conversation and explore the unique benefits the US provides for international students. From world-class education and career prospects to vibrant cultural experiments and experiences, we will delve into why the US continues to be a top destination for higher education. First thing first, I'd like to thank Campus Abroad for organizing this panel discussion for the benefit of students wanting and dreaming of studying in the US. By the end of this discussion, I am sure you will all get a very clear roadmap of where you want to be. This morning we were discussing of why do students go to the US, and one word came up, it's perception. The perception of going to the US is always that it's too far, it's too expensive, what will happen if I go there? So hopefully by the end of today's panel discussion, you will know exactly what to do. Before we dive into today's discussion, I'd like to take a moment to set the stage and share why this topic, advantages and opportunities of studying in the US, is so important and relevant For decades, the United States has been a leading destination for higher education, consistently ranking at the top of the global university lists. According to recent reports, approximately half of the world's best universities are in the US, offering unparalleled academic programs across different disciplines. With more than 5,000 higher education institutions, there truly is something for everyone, whether you are drawn to liberal arts, colleges, research universities, or specialty programs. There are just some key words I'd like to share with you before we get into the panel discussion, because there's a lot we can discuss. One is flexibility. The second, personal and professional growth. Third, the multicultural environment, which the US offers and very difficult to get anywhere else. And most importantly, the support system. So we've just discussed most of this amongst the different panelists. So as we move into our discussion today, I invite you to reflect on how these advantages align with your own educational and career goals, or those of the students you represent. Our panelists will shed light on these topics and more, providing insights to help you make informed decisions about studying in the US. I'd like to now invite the panelists one by one, if they can just come up with a brief introduction. Ladies and gentlemen, it is my honor to introduce an extraordinary panelist who embodies leadership, innovation, and impactful change. Manisha Dukuni, a visionary professional with a passion for driving development across Africa, Manisha has an impressive track record of advising businesses and governmental leaders on greenfield investment transactions and strategic business development. Manisha holds a master's in public administration from Harvard University and economics degree from both Delhi University and Jawaharlal Nehru University. Her academic foundation complements her extensive professional experiences, positioning her as a trailblazer in her field. She is the chairperson of the management board of the African Legal Support Facility, ALSF, a $250 million facility under the African Development Bank, supporting major investment projects across Africa, including mining, green hydrogen, and in energy infrastructure. Manisha also chairs the board of Windex Limited, fostering a digital asset investment ecosystem, and is a senior advisor for the Namibian Investment Promotion and Development Board. Beyond these roles, she also co-manages the EU Africa Rise Initiative, a €30 million EU facility where she has spearheaded projects such as the digitalization of Seychelles port, the establishment of a biopharma framework for Mauritius, and investment strategies in Madagascar and Rwanda. Manisha's contributions have not gone unnoticed. She was honored with the Angaza Forum Award for Women in Finance and Investment in 2024 and is a Mason Fellow from Harvard University. Her affiliation with numerous prestigious organizations underline her dedication to excellence and collaboration. As we delve into today's discussion on the advantages and opportunities of studying in the US, we look forward to hearing insights from Manisha Dukuni, whose journey exemplifies how education can catalyze transformative change. Please help me welcome Manisha. Ladies and gentlemen, it is my privilege to introduce an individual whose journey exemplifies academic excellence and dedication in international education, Dr. Iqbal Maharani. Serving as the Educational USA Advisor at the US Embassy in Port Louis since 2014, Dr. Maharani has been a guiding light for countless students aspiring to study in the United States. Dr. Maharali began his academic journey with an undergraduate degree in mathematics honors from the University of Delhi in India, followed by a Master of Education specializing in mathematics education from the University of Southern Queensland, Australia. His commitment to furthering his expertise led him to the United States on a full ride scholarship at the University of Cincinnati, where he earned a doctorate in education with a focus on curriculum and instruction in mathematics education. During his doctorate studies, Dr. Maharali made significant contribution to STEM education. He worked as a research assistant at the STEM Education Research Center, participating in projects funded by NASA. His responsibilities included developing research tools, data collection, and analysis. He also served as a graduate assistant and mentor, guiding master-level projects, co-instructing future math educators, and contributing to events like the Science and Engineering Expo. Since returning to Mauritius in 2014, Dr. Maharali has been instrumental in advising and mentoring students on opportunities for higher education in the United States. His unique blend of expertise, experience, and passion makes him an invaluable resource for students seeking to explore academics possibilities abroad. Please join me in welcoming Dr. Iqbal Maharali to our panel. Ladies and gentlemen, it is my great pleasure to introduce a true trailblazer and innovator, Wilson Lee, whose remarkable journey spans continents and disciplines. Born and raised in Mauritius, Wilson attended the Royal College of Port Louis before embarking on an illustrious academic and professional career. Wilson is a graduate of Yale University, where he earned his degree with honors in molecular biophysics and biochemistry. He also holds an MBA from the Wharton School and an MA in International Studies from the Lauder Institute at the University of Pennsylvania. As both a Joseph Wharton Fellow and Joseph Lauder Fellow, Wilson exemplifies academic excellence and global vision. Professionally, Wilson has led impactful projects across the US, Europe, Africa, and Asia, while also spearheading initiatives in Mauritius such as launching iconic brands like Doritos and Lay's, and building the island's first bowling alley. So he's the guy responsible. A founding member of the Port Louis Toastmasters Club and the American Chamber of Commerce, he has been a catalyst for community and business-driven development. Currently the director of the KIP Center for Leadership and founder of the Southern Sustainability Symposium, Wilson is a passionate advocate for innovation, entrepreneurship, and constructive nation building through the Maurice 100. His drive to inspire those around him to flourish speak to his deep belief in the power of education and leadership as forces for good. With his unique insight into the American education system and a rich history of personal and professional accomplishments, we are privileged to have him share his perspective on the advantages and opportunities of studying in the United States. Ladies and gentlemen, please help me welcome Wilson Lee.
One more to go. Ladies and gentlemen, it is my pleasure to introduce Ms. Pallavi Gopi, a dynamic HR professional whose career exemplifies innovation, leadership, and a commitment to excellence in organizational dynamics. Pallavi is a graduate of the University of Pennsylvania, where she earned a master's degree in organizational dynamics with honors. She also holds a bachelor's degree in business administration from the University of South Florida, specializing in human resource management and entrepreneurship. Her academic achievements are complemented by her leadership roles, including Vice President of the USF Human Resource Management Club and Founder President of the Association of Future Professionals in Business Management. global organizations, Pallavi has developed expertise in staffing operations, talent acquisition, and HR strategy. She currently serves as the head of HR Administrative Business Partnership at NG Gopi Group in Mauritius, where she oversees recruitment, employee relations, payroll, and engagement strategies for both local employees and expats. Pallavi's tenure at Google showcased her ability to innovate and drive results. As a senior staffing operations associate in Dublin, Ireland, she optimized recruiting processes and introduced tools that enhanced efficiency and candidate satisfaction. In Austin, Texas, she managed a team of 35 recruitment coordinators, excelling in operations management, workload balancing, and performance optimization. Driven by a passion for solving business challenges through effective HR strategies and fostering collaborative work environments, Pallavi is dedicated to creating impactful, efficient, and inclusive workplaces. Her experience across geographical and her commitment to operational excellence make her an invaluable addition to our discussion. Please help me welcome Mrs. Pallavi. It's always good to see somebody from Yale and Harvard. They've had this legendary rivalry through the years. And one of my favorite stories is at a function once, two guys, one was from Harvard, one was from Yale, went to the men's room. So when they finished, the guy from Harvard started washing his hands. But the guy from Yale was just walking out. So the man from Harvard said, at Harvard, we are taught to wash our hands after we pee. So the guy from Yale turns to the guy at Harvard and says, at Yale, we are taught not to pee on our fingers. Okay, let's kickstart today's panel discussion.
Thank you very much. I know for many people, the US really sounds like absolutely far from everything, and also far from what we understand and what we know. For many people as well in Mauritius, the US is what you see in the movies, kind of cars chasing each other, it's like, or Western movies or whatever. So there is that sort of an ideal in some way, or an idea of what the US is. But the US is not at all like that. It's very different in terms of the lifestyle and what we actually focus on. But the main reason, as Ravin mentioned in the beginning, that I am in investment, and I've been working in investment for many years, I would say I think that the US brings you a very good value proposition for investment. So essentially, when you're going to the US, true, you will have to invest a certain amount of money, which you probably will invest also if you're going to New York, to London or any of the other locations. But then the outcome you get out of it. So first of all, in terms of the monetary outcome, the jobs that you will get afterwards, the revenue that you will get from the jobs afterwards as young kids coming up, will far outweigh all these costs. But apart from these, the benefit from just the revenue that you will be getting, the jobs that you will be getting afterwards, there's also the culture that you're going to gain. We call ourselves in Mauritius to be multicultural, but the US is so much more multicultural, or the US that I experienced was so much more multicultural, especially when you are in schools that really make it a point to attract a whole diversity of people. So it enlarges your mind in terms of what you're seeing, it enlarges your experiences, it enlarges your friendship. I was mentioning earlier to Iqbal that I was in Abidjan last week, and everywhere I go, I know I have friends. And this is one of the great advantages of being part of the Harvard community. Everywhere I go, I have friends. Everywhere I go, we have community meetings. We have, where I met with about 20 Harvard alumni who are based out of Abidjan in last week. And everywhere I go, I just need to send a message within the community. And even if it is not 20, but at least one will say, okay, let's have lunch, let's have coffee. So it opens doors for your future work, for your future businesses. It's also linkages and friendships that you will be building for life. And if I may add one thing, when you go to Harvard in particular, they tell you have to go there. Well, for mine, it's like for the 9th credit. And the 9th credit is really the friendship and the linkages that you build there. So why the US is really for all these other things that you probably might not get in other locations where you go for study.
Thank you, Manisha, for those insights. Dr. Iqbal, what makes the US as the best study destination?
Well, that's a very good question. So actually, let's talk a little bit about the cost or the scholarships, right? Because, during my tenures at the embassy, the very first question that I get is about the cost and what kind of scholarships we can obtain from the US. So I would say American universities, they do offer quite generous scholarships, even at the undergraduate level or the graduate level. So that's one reason, why I would consider the US as a top study destination. The second thing is about the system of education. So, it doesn't include only the academic knowledge, acquisition of academic knowledge, but it also gives students the opportunity to, involve in activities that contribute to their professional development in terms of getting skills like leadership skills, negotiating skills, presentation skills, team working. So all these types of skills are really vital for the workplace. And so on graduation, I would say the student will not only get an academic degree, but also is bringing also with him or her all these vital skills for the workplace. So I would say these two reasons why that I would consider the US as a top study destination.
Thank you, Dr. Iqbal. Wilson, your turn. Why should anybody consider going to the US to study, and how did you go there?
Good evening, everybody. I guess I was lucky. I was in the right place at the right time. I imagine if you are in this hall today, you're already sort of interested of exploring going to the US. Manisha told us a little bit about why, even if it's so far away. I think actually, probably some among you here, probably among the group who wants to be as far away as possible from Mauritius. So I guess that's also going to speak to you. In today's world, unfortunately, fortunately, you have WhatsApp and all that, so your parents will still be able to keep checks on you. So that won't work. I believe, if I may, the biggest advantage of going to the US for me were, even though it was a blind date of sorts, the advantage of choosing your major a little later on in life. In many of the educational systems that we won't name here, you have to really decide right after high school whether you're going to be in the sciences or in literature or become an artist and all that. So if it so happens that you don't like, for instance, a career in law, then you get stuck in a dead end very fast. Whereas in the US, in the liberal arts education system, you can probably declare your major after the second year, after 4 year. Even after junior year, I had a classmate of mine who switched after junior year. So senior year, she had like 9 courses in history, but she managed to major. To go back to my own personal journey, I think I was just lucky. Long story short, I fell upon a very small book during my HSC course was Love Story, written by Eric Siegel while he was teaching at Wellesley, I think. And a very small book, but it was talking about a lot about Ivy League and Yale and Harvard and Princeton and this and that. And all of a sudden, like in Mauritius, like nobody had even evoked going to the US, so it came as a big surprise to me. I went to the embassy like any good law-abiding citizen would go, and there used to be predecessor of Dr. Iqbal there, called Lady Paulina Henry, so she's still around. They did not have that many resources, except for a few directories, but we figured it out in one way or another. So, long story short, I was lucky, I applied, got in, and one of the aspects that Dr. Iqbal touched upon were the financial implications. So I think most of you here are probably aware that there are many, many ways of financing an education in the US, including a lot of schools that are totally needs blind. Like MIT last week stated that it was going to be tuition free for any family earning less than $200,000, which I think most Mauritian families would qualify for. The trick is to get in, of course. So I think I was lucky at that point. I managed to get in. I think I was at the very beginning of globalization. One little fun fact, there used to be foreign exchange control in Mauritius, so I left with exactly £400 sterling, which was $880, to go to the US in a one-way ticket. And I think if you ask me to do the same thing today, I'll be like, I'll think about it, but I guess we were dreamers at that point and reckless as well, so we would see where the $880 would bring us and make it work. I think if this is the sort of thinking that is attractive to you, I think the US would be a very good place to go.
Thanks, Wilson. One fun fact of Wilson is the team he used to work with went on to win the Nobel Prize in Chemistry. Is that correct?
Yes. When I wrote to my old team members, all they found to say to me was, hey, I was saying, hey, if I stayed in the team, I would be in Oslo right now. And they said, oh, maybe if you were in the team, they wouldn't be winning.
So Wilson, you would encourage students here to read the book Love Story or watch the film. Because the one particular dialogue, I saw this many, many years ago, where Ali Magraw turns to Ryan O'Neill and says, you're stupid. So he says, what makes you think I'm stupid? So she says, because you haven't invited me for a cup of coffee. So he says, what makes you think I'm going to invite you for coffee? So that's what makes you stupid. Pallavi, we come to you. Having gone through your CV, I said, let me frame the question differently. What key lessons did you learn during your time at the University of South Florida and the University of Pennsylvania that have shaped your approach to leadership and HR?
I think it's a really good question, and if I'm not mistaken, I'm the youngest.
You are the youngest in the panel.
So I think I can definitely, resonate to the audience today because you're young, still not knowing what you want to decide. And trust me, I was in that same place when I first told my parents that I want to go to the United States. The first question came to me was, why so far? We have to take maybe free connecting flights, and when we're looking at it, and I was like, yeah, it seems to be far, but still there was something in me telling me that there is something great awaiting me there. Still did not know how it's gonna be, and I have been, I'm the eldest, so it's always like you are looked upon and you need to be the role model, so you don't have the chance of failing is one thing that you should go for straight puts eye. So at that point of time, going on an adventure like such as the University of South Florida, it was daunting, I'll be honest. My mom and my little brother came to drop me, and at the beginning it felt like, we're on a trip. Like, it's gonna be fine. And as the days were coming that they had to leave, then I'm like, okay, this is definitely not a holiday. I will need to stay here. And I did not have, like any friends or that. So it takes time to, be friends with people, even though you're doing the mornings, sessions and all. But, to frame it all in one, I would say that at that point of time, being 18 years old, not knowing what you want to do, the US gives you the platform to think about it. I think as Wilson rightly said, you have a time to choose your major. My story is pretty interesting because I did a bachelor's in business administration and I had the idea of going for HR, but here in Mauritius, it's not really prominent to be thinking of, like, why would you go and do, career in management in that sort? Because at that point of time, if you could see it, HR responsibilities used to be seen as career, like it's more like filing, hiring people, firing people, more of that. But still, and at some point of time during my sophomore year, I was like, okay, I might not get a job by the time I would graduate, so should I just try for the big fours and shift to accounting? And at that point of time, I thought after 10 years down the line whether I would be happy to be behind a cubicle and working on spreadsheets and all of that, because I'm someone who's extrovert. I would feel like I need that empathy to work with people around me. So that's when I decided I want to go with a business management degree, and from there it's just been climbing the ladder. And that was the biggest takeaway, I would say, is give yourself a chance. You might fail, doesn't mean that everything that you do, any endeavors you go for, you will be successful. There has been ups and downs. It's never been like, going for rejections when you apply to your favorite company. That did happen to me, did cry for it. But again, I would say that Google did happen at that point of time, so it's not given to everyone to have a chance for it. And when I would go there, people would be like, where is Mauritius? Is it Malaysia, Mauritania? All of those kind of questions. But it's with great pride I would say that being able to go to Google and being a Mauritian had really given me that platform. And I would thank the US, to be honest to you, to be able to do that dream. So yeah.
Thank you, Pallavi, for sharing that experiences. I think that would resonate with a lot of students who want to be encouraged to take that step, just like you did. Manisha, coming back to you, one of the dream places all students have, and still my dream also, is to go to Harvard. What was your experience at Harvard?
Well, maybe my first experience, I think maybe it could have been like Wilson, reading books. I'm not too sure it was a love story, but must have been books about Harvard or books that mentioned Harvard. And speaking about that, Wilson, you went to the wrong school because love story is about Harvard, not about Yale. But my first experience, I have to tell you, so I applied to a couple. I applied as a mid-career student, and I know some of you may be considering mid-career opportunities. And that is also something that is quite special about Harvard and about the US. My first experience was really receiving the letter. I guess now you just get an email, but for me I received a real letter. But the problem was, compared to all the others, because I'd applied to a few other Ivy Leagues, those that accept you, it's like a big envelope that comes in, and the big envelope has got all other forms that you have to fill in to send them. The envelope that came from Harvard was a thin one, so I got there, I was traveling, I came back, and I got it, I saw the envelope on the table, I took it and quickly went to the bathroom. I said, well, if it is bad news, no one will. So I went to the bathroom and then I was like shouting in the bathroom. So my mom and my sister who were there were like, what happened? So it was really that open, I think many of you have mentioned about the dream, that open dream. When I opened that envelope, it really opened the dream about what could be done. And you really do not know, you really don't know what you can dream of. I didn't know, like going to Harvard, that my next steps in my career would be leading organizations in Africa, making changes, bringing in so much of world differences, meeting amazing people, breaking my nose while playing football with some people who are now in the candidacy to be the president of Mexico, etc. And the other thing about Harvard, it's the access that it gives you. So first of all, many of my teachers are people who are Nobel laureates, the people who are thinkers, who are movers, who are shakers in their own way. They are people who are able, as a Harvard student and now an alumni, they're able to open door, to experience, to exchange, to discuss with you, which is an access that is difficult to get in other instances. The other thing is, it's the network that you get within Harvard. Once you are within Harvard, your first network, the people that you engage with, I have currently the president of Moldova, who's one of my classmates. I have many people who are, well, CEOs of huge companies elsewhere, etc. It's not because they're CEOs of huge companies. They are friends, and with that friendship and the network, it's something that builds and builds up opportunities that you would not have dreamed of. The other thing that I would say is the alumni, and the alumni is very important. I don't know if all schools, but certainly Ivy Leagues are very strong in terms of the alumni network. I chair the alumni network for Mauritius. We're not that many. We're about maybe 20, 30 out of those. Only about 10, 15 are, let's say, based out of Mauritius. But this alumni network is really a passport for the rest of your life, wherever you're going. If I'm going to India, I know I have alums there. If I'm going into a specific business, I can reach out to the alums for them to, share thoughts, share ideas, help in many ways. And that alumni network is something that is very precious, very strong, and we meet every 5 years. We didn't meet, well, my year would have been the COVID year, 2020. We didn't meet that year, but looking forward to next year when we're meeting. But that strength of the alumni network is really very strong and beyond Mauritius as well, especially for those who are looking, who have a vision of not just, well, I'd love for many of you to come back, but that network beyond Mauritius is something that you will cherish.
So Manisha, basically what you're saying is dream big. Don't let dreams scare you. So if you could get into Harvard, if you try, you could get it. Now, I come to $1 million question, and Iqbal, I'd like to address that to you. This is especially for parents. What is the cost of studying in the USA? Is it affordable?
What do you think? Okay, so this is a very interesting question about the cost. So anywhere you go, I'm not going to sugarcoat anything. So it's going to be expensive, but at the same time, there are a lot of scholarships and a lot of financial aid that can be offered to international students, right? So, in terms of the cost, I would say that will vary between 40K and 70K. It really depends on which university you're going to. But you need to make sure that you're looking for universities that offer financial aid and scholarships to international students. In my past 10 years at the US Embassy, so what I found, a lot of students, what they do, they choose universities of interest, which is fine, right? But the parents are not involved in that search. They're not involved in looking for universities together with the kid. So when the students will get admission, they will come to me and say, I need scholarships, right? So the first thing that they did not do is about looking for schools that offer financial aid to international students, right? So I would say, the very good advice that I would like to give parents is to, accompany the child when they're making this university search. And these are the workshops that we do at the US Embassy. We teach the students how to make that university search, what criteria can you select, can you use to make that search. But one of these criteria would be financial aid and scholarships. You need to be to make sure that this university or this set of universities you're choosing are going to offer financial aid scholarships to your kid, right? Now, at the undergraduate level, there are two types of funding. So you have merit-based aid, which we know as scholarships, and then you have need-based aid, which is called as financial aid, of course, right? And at the graduate level, if someone is going for a master's or a doctorate or a PhD, then there are funding that are called assistantships. So I'm going to talk a little bit about assistantships and all these types of aid later on in this discussion. But for now, you have a cost for you to certificate. It depends on the university. But at the same time, make sure that you are looking for institutions that offer financial aid and scholarships to international. Because not all of them will do this types of aid.
Thank you, Iqbal. Now, finances is something really important for parents to decide. Wilson, I'll put it differently. What are the financial implications of choosing to study in the US, both during studies and after graduating?
I think again, it's more comment on that depreciation that would be a lot of parents and Mauritius would find it more difficult to finance studies for their offspring abroad. But again, it's just a comparative exercise. So today you can go anywhere around the world, and the people who are going to solve South Korea, I think, the frontier of the future. So in the US, like Dr. Iqbal just said, you have many different sources of financing. So there used to be a time when only private universities would be able to fund niche blind or some other type of diversity. But I think the demand is making even state colleges and universities move in that direction, to compete for talent and to increase the diversity that everybody is seeking. I think MIT explained it very well last week what it was doing. There used to be a time when just going on the website of a state college or university, you would just say, oh, out of state you wouldn't be eligible. But I know personally of recent successes of people having been able to find all manners of financing. I even met somebody last year who went for sports events, so playing soccer or something. So I think many ways of looking at it, and again, if it's action-oriented bias, I think we get from the US. If you don't try, you are not going to make it. So I encourage everybody in the audience to really look at every single opportunity. Just knock at the door, and even if you knock at the door before, it could be open afterwards. So there are loads of implications. In the US, when I went a long time ago, the idea of philosophy in the US is you have to contribute to your own education. So the Yale instituted like a self-loan that I had to take during the 4 years. I had to work 20 hours on campus. But again, you have to, it's all part and parcel of the education. If you manage to make a bundle of it, I think it is definitely worth exploring. And I think Iqbal will probably agree with me that there are ways to finance it in different, many different ways. Right?
Yeah, so I would also like to add that, do you have anyone who wants to go for a master's or a PhD in the US? No one? Master's or PhD? No graduate students? So everyone is undergraduate. Okay, so that's fine. So, so I already mentioned about the financial aid and the scholarship options that are available to international students. Now, you can still work on campus, we'll touch base on that as well. There is some confusion with most of the time with parents and students, thinking about working on campus will help you cover your tuition. Okay, that's not going to help you cover your tuition. That's going to help you towards your living expenses, right? So, if you are a master's or a PhD student, that's a whole different story. So this is why I asked about this question. But if you are an undergraduate student, there are various ways, as Wilson was saying, about you just need to go and find that these different ways. But work is one thing, and also I found with a few of my students who have been involved in study abroad programs, like exchange programs in a different country. So it's very popular right now. A lot of Mauritian students who are doing exchange programs, in a different campus in France. I found some going to China, and some have gone to Dubai. So these are things that we would want to consider. That might reduce the cost as well. Other ways are internships. Now there are paid and unpaid internships. Okay. Now it depends on the field of study. If you are doing engineering or architecture, then definitely you will have opportunity, to go into internships. So most of the time it's paid, but sometimes it's not. So these are the things that you want to consider. So there are various ways that you can tap into. And sometimes, there are also internal scholarships that you can identify, you can try to look at, because these are always available. So when I was at university, I was not really involved with undergraduates, but I found quite a lot of internal scholarships over the semesters, and a lot of students were trying to get this. So maybe for parents, what I would say, when you're first sending a kid to the US, that initial move will cost some money. But as they go, it depends on how the student move around the campus, that cost might come down. Right? Then I've seen quite a lot of Russian students do things like that. Right? So it really depends on the student when they're on campus.
Pallavi, let's come to you. Your bio is very interesting, and you mentioned a stint at Google. How did your role at Google, especially in staffing operations and people management, influence your career trajectory and your perspective on talent development?
I think for that I will have to do a bit of a recap, to go back to, the bachelor's and the master's degree. When I took my classes in the bachelor's degree, I had interesting classes such as negotiation and conflict resolution. If tomorrow you're on a table and you have a different party which is not agreeing to what you need to do, how do you really work around those things? Like that soft skill you need to, have it embedded in you to be able to run a business, in the future. So classes like that were pretty interesting, and I had another class which was people analytics. So that course typically, shows you how, if you're already working in a company, you have maybe 100 of staff that are working under you as an HR professional, how could you track whether someone is thinking of leaving the company, resigning, or maybe they are not happy because they did not get promoted on time, or they are not happy with how the course of work is going. So going into depth into these kind of courses really made me understand that the world of human resource management is way much bigger. That's the reason why Google calls it people management, people operations, and not HR. So that I came across that term when I was doing a case study. So we had an interesting story where we were given a 24-hour case study. So we are given the case at 5 p.m. on a Friday, and then you have to present it at 9 a.m. on a Saturday in front of a panel. So, and you are in a team of 5. So we were in a capstone course. And we don't know each other yet at that point of time. So there were some of the classmates. One was from the accounting side, finance side, I was from management. So we all came up together and we built up a business proposal. So from there, it taught me how to have a structure. And that time management you had. You only had 24 hours. And it was a competition where, there would be a winning team. So you need to really rack your brains at that point of time. You don't have any choices at that point. So from there, it taught me so many soft skills that enabled me to understand that to get into Google, it's just not about knowing the technical skills, but those soft skills are also really important. What happens is when you are in the decorum of, doing the HSC and the SC, we all tend to focus on the necessities of how to get A's, A pluses, and we tend to forget about that thought of how to make yourself, an earned professional. And I think the US really serves that point at that point where you are not just doing the course for the sake of earning, a high GPA, but also becoming a good professional and all-rounder. So that's why I would say that the US universities really focus on the idea of not just excelling in your coursework, but also getting into extracurricular activities. I got the chance to participate in the Model United Nations in New York, so that was a really great opportunity for me, and we even won the best delegate team. So we get opportunities like that. So what I would say to the younger generation is be go-getters. That's what you need to do. Don't believe that you have never tried it, so it's not going to work. You definitely need to step out there, and you would have friends and peers who would encourage you for that. Professors. Last week itself, I got to talk to one of my professors from my master's degree. So it's a bit hard to keep in touch, but if you have a really robust LinkedIn profile and you're connected with your professors, one thing I would say is never lose the touch. They are the people. We've talked about the alumni, but I would say that people who taught you, your teachers, they are the perfect people to guide you and your mentors. So that's something that you should never forget about it. So always bridge that gap and keep in touch. You don't have time, it's okay, we're all professionals, but when you go back to them, it gives them that immense warmth, but you can't even believe it, they really are grateful for the work they have given when they see what they have shaped, leaving a legacy behind.
Well, thanks. I think that's a great tip you gave. Manisha, one question we want to ask you regarding the approach of learning in the US and opportunities.
Well, I think that's an interesting question because, like you mentioned, I think in Mauritius, we're more focused on just getting the A's, so it's more academic, more focused on just the numbers, the A's. Very often then we forget that we need to do, I think we're talking about that health, out of it we need to be, we need to be able to know how to play chess. We don't focus on all that. I even learned how to bike in Harvard, actually, because in Mauritius we didn't have time to learn how to bike, and parents think that it's dangerous. So, because I had to get to school, so I had to learn how to bike. But it's very different in that. And then I went and studied in India, which is a totally different framework as well, which is even more academic, but having a lot of this cultural in-way, etc., in terms of the work. The difference, I would say, in the US is, first of all, well, of course, academic is very important. Apart from academic, it's about many of the things that you would be doing, whether it is placement, I think, as Iqbal mentioned, whether it is the experiences that you would have, and I think Wilson can talk about his louder experience, and with respect to the different people that you would meet, the groups that you would meet. I was very active, for example, with women networks and women networks for leadership, etc., across the campus. And therefore, that network kind of opened doors for so much of interest. And I mentioned as well the alumni. The alumni, it's not just about, like afterwards. It's also about what they're giving and the time that they're giving, sharing of experience, sharing of learning. That is, I've done courses at the business school whereby you have many of the alumni who come back to share, to experience. And therefore, what you're learning is not just what's written in the book. You're learning from the experiences of others. I think Partager mentioned case studies, etc. So case studies, case practice is another item that I think was pioneered at Harvard, but now it's used much more at large. It's used in business schools elsewhere. But the case practice and the case methodology, it's a different way to learn in the sense that you're not learning just the theory of things. You're learning about the experience of someone within a specific issue. And therefore, then you understand that things are much more complicated, especially when you step in a world of, in the world of working and actually in actual life as well. So it's really a preparation that is totally different compared to what you could get in other locations. And I can speak of Harvard, but there are other types of, like for example, when we're speaking about liberal arts colleges, which provides even more of those different experiences for students, and then they come back. I know someone who went to a small liberal arts college and came back and is still a CEO of a big company in Mauritius. So those sort of differences are there.
Thanks, Anish. Iqbal, after listening to all that, what golden advice would you give to students who are planning to study in the US?
I know we have ideals outlined in this, right? Now, there are over 4,000 institutions in the US, so do not focus on non-prestigious universities. You can add these to your list, but try to look for the best fit. Maybe an Ivy League is not the best fit for you. Okay? And these are the things that we try to do, over the years. And I can see some of my students in this room, they can testify about that. There are quite a lot of workshops that we do over the year at the embassy where we try to, show them there are so many options available to you. Over 4,000 institutions in the United States. So I always tell them, if you apply on the Common App, maybe some of you know about that, you can apply to a maximum of 20 universities. So you can add all the 8 Ivy Leagues, but then try to add some safety schools as well in the list. So that's an advice I would give. Don't focus only on prestige. Okay? So that's just the reality here that I've seen, right? And the second thing I would say is about the cost, right? So when we try to look at the cost, when you compare the cost between other countries and the US, especially after COVID, what I found with the general scholarships that students can get, if they're not paid, then I would say, I know we are all biased here, so go to the US, okay? Don't go anywhere else, go to the US. Now, for various reasons, but in serious note, going to the US means, as I mentioned in the beginning, you don't just get the academic knowledge, but you get all these types of skill sets that help you, face the real world of work. And this is what we need. It's really vital, especially in this world we're living, it's really vital that you have these skill sets beyond your academic knowledge. Academic knowledge is fine, it's good that you have it. It helps you to think critically, but you need these skills as well to face the real world of work.
Thanks, Iqbal. Building on that, Wilson, I'm going to ask you 2 questions rolled into one. What are the potential life skills that one can learn and carry along after studying in the US? And how did you enjoy your experience in the US? As Mauritians, how ready are we, culturally, etc., to enjoy first, then take advantage of the US national education system?
Thank you, Robin. I would say that most people in this room today would be able to pick and choose wherever they want to go to study. So this is, in fact, choosing at the margin. Really, you can only do your bachelor once, I guess. So a good thing is that most colleges in the US now allow people to actually go junior year abroad or junior semester abroad, and it's actually part and parcel of the requirements for the degree. I would say, looking at my own journey, what I've really enjoyed as my portable asset is something that comes in the American culture itself. I think it is the self-starting, action-oriented bias. So in the US, if you have failed as an entrepreneur, you actually regard it even more highly because people in the bankers would look at you and say, oh, this guy probably have done something. So they would actually be more willing to trust you again on a second venture if you have done the learning curve. I think if you carry this same mindset, I think again the mindset going there, if you tend to espouse it, would help a lot around the world. I've looked at the different other countries. Normally I don't tend to compare, but I think this is one of the main differences you should look at. how ready are we to have a good experience in the US? I think we already are heading Mauritius. I have a good friend who likes to say, hey, Mauritius is the world in one country. And I think we are very attuned to cultural differences, we are very attuned to perseverance and all that. So, and we're outgoing enough, I would say, to enjoy the casualness of the American society. I had friends who were sort of scared. They had studied in Europe before going there, so they were like, oh, the only thing again, stereotype that they had in their heads were it's going to be, cold and unfriendly. But I think again, in general, everyday terms, very, very easy for us to fit. The fact that we're bilingual or trilingual makes it very easy for us to fit into many conversations, and Spanish comes very easily. It's very well spoken there. I think again, being Mauritian, we're already open, and Manisha pointed out that we have even more shades of diversity there, that if we take our time to go and discover, we very enjoyable. And I think we benefit a lot. So I would really encourage most of the people in the audience who are considering to at least explore deeply. I don't see any difficulty, and I think we bring what we learned from over there with us for the rest of our lives.
Thanks, Wilson. Pallavi, one last question before I open the floor for questions from the audience. The world is changing very rapidly, a lot of changing take place. What experiences or challenges in your earlier career, particularly with diverse teams, have helped you refine your ability to work in a fast-paced and high-pressure environment?
I think I would say that the ability to work with diverse team came with the change of mindset. We've been talking a lot about, the type of mindset that we have here in Mauritius. Since, childhood, we are taught, you need to, earn good grades, you need to focus on your studies. That's the only thing that we really need to focus on. But when you go to a new country and you're trying to make new friends, you need things to align. That's something which is really important, because if you're only, stuck in a cocoon of, what you know, it becomes a bit of, the hesitation is there, to kind of open up and, be there and understanding what's your surroundings. So I used to be like that at that point of time, because what we get to, always learn, especially when you go to, the star schools, as we say here. I was from Maurice Info, so it's like, you're competing for, scholarships and all of that, so you don't really get time, to focus on any other things. But when you go to the US, over there at the beginning, it used to be, I would not say a cultural shock or any such things, but it was a bit, difficult, to get yourself accustomed to, people coming from different backgrounds, not giving so much of importance to education in a way that they prefer to be, all-rounders. They would see themselves, pursuing their hobbies or anything that they are passionate about. So I think that's one thing that I would tell, even parents and students is go with an open mind. It's really important that you strike a balance between what you're passionate about and what the job market really is out there offering for you. I think in my case, I was, lucky enough to go for something I'm passionate about, because I love talking to people. That empathy needs to be there, and I needed something like that as a job, like something that I do on a day-to-day basis. But it's really upon oneself to know what you want to go ahead. Don't go with that part of, if someone is doing the law, or you're seeing your friends going for engineering, that's the reason why I would go for it. No. Try to see deep inside yourself something that, would align to the, situation as it is, the present situation, because it's really important, especially if we have students who are thinking of, about the immigration status. If you want to stay there, work for a while, and, gain that experience, it's really important to go for something that first you have the prospects for it, but something that, if you're going for a 9-to-5 job, in the morning you don't wake up and be like, why did I choose this? Because you would not want to do that. Interestingly, I think it's important for me to mention that when I got to Google, you have that 1 year of OPT, which is given after you graduate. I've worked, and then that was the time when you need to, go for the H1B lottery. And by the time I was doing, the interview for a full-time role, the immigration told me that it was already past the deadline, was passed. So that doesn't really allow me much time, to either see if I can stay in the US, because the answer to it would be a straight no, because it jeopardizes your status in the United States. But at that point of time, my recruiter, because my interview feedback was good, they agreed to relocate me to Dublin. So what I'm trying to say here is there are opportunities outside the United States. So it's not just about focusing on what you're doing for XYZ reasons. So tomorrow you're not able to settle down there. There are always opportunities, and it's all about going out for it. Be a go-getter, as I said earlier. Sometimes you may be lucky to have an opportunity coming straight to you, but what I would say is most of the time it's something that you would need to go and seek out for it. So yes.
Wow. So we've had 4 amazing panelists. So this session has been more like everything you wanted to know about the US and education but were afraid to ask. I'd like to open the floor now for any questions. You can address your questions to any one of the panelists. Who wants to go first? Please. Can you stand up? You have a mic? Yeah, sure.
So I saw when I was researching about universities in the US that credits were mentioned frequently, and I wanted to know what exactly were they and how do they work. Because apparently certain courses you take in high school are going to give you credits for your tertiary education. So if any of you would like to share it.
I think since I'm like the most recent one out of it, I can definitely relate to that. So basically what it's telling you depends on the major you're choosing. So I'll take, like an example, you're going for chemical engineering, okay? Maybe you're a science student, you did something in chemistry and you got really good grades. So the first step would be if you had A's or, depending on which school you are attending, you would have to convert it into a GPA, correct? So it worked in that way. So when you look at the courses, the type of coursework you've built in there, so we would try to see and match whether it's the same thing. So what happens in the freshman year, typically I have had the same kind of opportunity where some credits got, swiped up for it, like second upgrade, let's just put it like that. It's because our curriculum here is more advanced than what is there in the US, especially in the freshman year. You would tend to see yourself, being, say, like overqualified for that freshman year based on the courses that you're doing. So maybe you've already completed calculus or algebra in your freshman, in your college time right now, and then in your freshman year, you would see that already cleared up. So what I would say is, if you can connect to any of the student advisor, sometimes you can go on the university website and they would give you, the undergraduate admission. Contact them and let them know that this is your results slip and you are thinking that some of the classes might be giving you for that credits already shifting. They would check it and they would let you know. So that's one thing I would say, that go forward for that, because you don't want to end up paying for coursework which you've already completed, because it's still a cost, and I think parents would relate to that. So they would just transfer you. So sometimes you have algebra 1 or 2, so maybe you've already finished in high school algebra 1, they would just shift you to algebra 2, so then it's already, giving you a heads up. So, yeah. Yeah, sure.
Anyone else? Please feel free. This is the best moment because we have amazing panelists.
We don't bite.
Can I ask a question?
Please.
So we've heard a lot about Harvard and Yale, University of Southern Florida, not too much about University of Cincinnati, but if you could pick your top 5 schools in the US, what would they be? Okay, not Harvard and not Yale. Because we have 4,000.
5,000 actually.
Okay.
Well, then there would be some of the West Coast ones, because they're quite exciting. The Berkeley, Stanford. Well, if I had to choose, it would be Berkeley, Stanford, because of the excitement. And I personally, and that that's one thing maybe you'd want to consider. Coming from Mauritius, it's a little bit more difficult to adapt in, let's say, a New York university, because we're not, let's say for me personally, I wasn't comfortable going to Colombia, for example, because it was in the middle of the city. I wanted, let's say, we have a different lifestyle, and for that different lifestyle, maybe going to a big city, New York, Chicago, etc., is not what you would want to do in the first place. You might feel very overwhelmed in the beginning. It's something to consider. Although they are great schools, but it's maybe less adapted for our lifestyle.
If I may, I think it's a bit of a fallacy to look at rankings. I think it's really up to us to choose where we're going to feel happiest and where we fit in. There used to be a time in my life when probably was much more important, the rankings and this and that, and of course, every time we're number one here and there, oh, this is so great, and we exchange among alums and classmates. But afterwards, when I went to Yale, I'd never been to the US and never visited any campus, so I had no idea what to expect. But afterwards, I got to visit quite a number and really comparing apples with oranges. And even today, anything in the top 10, top 20, top 50, wherever you're happy, and you can make the financial package worth it. I think this is what the primary consideration should be. Just a little to the question just before. I think the beauty of the US is, again, you can design and you can have two majors, one major, one minor. You can design your own major, something that doesn't exist, as long as you can defend it with the faculty and the university. So I think in very few places around the world can you do that. And maybe again, this beauty of the US and the country itself was designed and built instead of just appearing like that. So it's one of the things you could consider if you are choosing between, you're very strong in two different areas. There's no need for you to choose one, and the US would allow for you to even do your double major very easily.
May just add one thing to John's point. There's another type of college that I would recommend Mauritian students to consider. These are the liberal arts colleges. They're smaller. They are, let's say, you're in a more cocooned environment. Especially, I think parents would like that, to have it, that children be out somewhere in a village or in a rural environment, in a more cocooned environment, where you also have got that possibility for experiences. You would know the list of all of them, but there's not that many, but it's quite focused, and I think that could be quite suitable as well.
I'd like to ask a question as a parent. So normally when you're choosing a university or a college for your son or daughter, you do a SWOT analysis, strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. We've heard all the bright sides of studying in the US. As a parent, what are the risks, pitfalls, disadvantages of choosing to study in the US?
I think I would say that from my personal experience would be my parents were thinking that I would not come back. So yes, that's one of those things that, I would not say it's a disadvantage, but I think it's an advantage for the kids for sure. But if parents are, really trying to think whether they would want their kids to come back and, for any reasons, I think the US really gives you that, variety of opportunities for someone not to feel bored. I think I would definitely agree on Wilson's part of saying that, you could double major. I did a major in human resource management, but a minor in entrepreneurship. In case in the future, I aspire to be a CEO, but I always thought of, I need to know the basics of how you run a venture capital and how it works. So the United States really gives you that opportunity to go forward for that. So we've touched upon, the point of the distance. I think that's also another thing that, there could be situations where, parents, they could feel overwhelmed when they see their, son or daughter, being stranded with, any medical emergency, and, they can't really do anything at that point of time. God forbid anything as such happens, but what I would say is for students to be really anything that you're doing, I'm not saying, like, I'm sure the four of us can relate to that. Doesn't mean that you don't have your share of, joy and fun, in the right terms of it. But do make sure that you don't take a step where, that would give any, stress or worries to your parents, because I think when, parents are sending us to the United States, it's a big amount of trust that, they're bestowing to us. They really trust us. It's really far from here. So they do, want to think that, we're on our best behaviors, which is something that everyone needs to do, but doesn't mean that, you can't really, adventure yourself. But I think try to give, less worries to your parents, especially because of the distance. I think it can be really, nerve-wracking for them and heartbreaking, because I did have, friends who had mutual friends, someone who passed away in an accident or anything as such. So just think about those parents at that point of time. You send off your kid to, study, and for some reason, things as such happen. Mishaps do happen, but what I would say is, as a student, be sure that, you're doing the right thing at the right time. Yeah.
Wilson, anything from your side?
No, I can see no advantages of it.
Please.
I actually believe, I think whether we like it or not, we are going to be, if we with the culture, will come up shaped in a certain way. I can tell a funny story. The first year I came back from Mauritius, 2 Mauritius after undergrad, I fought with every single person I met because everybody was late. Every single meeting I went. And the US spirituality is really, like
Top priorities.
imperative, and it has to be spot on. So after the first year, I had actually to really add some more in my wine in Mauritius, and I started getting late, and I was like, it did last. But I think individualism again is something that we need to consider very. With an open mind, of course, but I think if we go too far into it, we would tend to shape our common, view or sound that we have here. So I think these are the 2 3 things that we should at least be aware of before going there.
Jen?
Ravi, this is not a question, but just an observation. I'm following up from what Wilson and Pallavi said about the flexibility of the US education system. I think the classic case I can remember is Dr. Venki Ramakrishnan, the Nobel Prize winner for chemistry. He did all his studies in physics, and then went on to do higher studies in biology, and then won a Nobel Prize in chemistry. So that could be one case of flexibility.
Yeah. If I may add on that, indeed, I studied first in India. And in India, I studied economics and did economics honors, which means that we didn't get to choose. Maybe 1 or 2 subjects, but you don't get to choose. In the US, you may end up being even more confused actually, because you'll have so much of options, so much of possibilities, but that also means so much more openness in terms of what you can do afterwards.
So yeah, I would add to that. This is something very common. It's in the culture. Do something as your bachelor's degree. Like in my case, I did a bachelor's degree in mathematics. Then I shifted to education. It was mathematics, but it was education. Then I shifted to a doctorate. It was education and character instruction. So where did I end? I ended up in diplomatic missions. So I knew nothing. I didn't know anything about how the US government functions. So all of that, thanks to the skill sets, like I mentioned, all the skill sets that I acquired on campus, the work experiences that I got, that really, really helped me to get through this. Because, I didn't have any experience in any skills in working, in a diplomatic mission. So this is something that you have to learn. And at the beginning it was kind of difficult, but then with all the experiences that you get, you just get through it.
Yes.
Okay, in order to get this scholarship, what should students do to make themselves stand out in terms of extracurriculars?
That's a very good question. So, which are you in grade 12, 13?
11.
So you need to be my next cohort, right? Because, you know, we do quite a lot of workshops on scholarships and financial aid, but this is a good question about extracurriculars. So extracurriculars is part of your application, right? But in terms of scholarships, you know, as I mentioned, there are two types of scholarships. So you have merit-based aid, which we know as a scholarship, and then you have financial aid or need-based aid. Okay? So for scholarships, you know, it's kind of, I would say, automatic scholarship offered to you upon admission. But for need-based, for financial aid, that you have to apply. So it has nothing to do with your academics. It has everything to do with the your family situation, social and financial.
Somebody here.
I think I would just add up to what you were asking. During my time when I was in high school, we had case study competitions or debates. I think these are also good platforms. I'm pretty much sure we are still doing it. These are good things that you could invest your time in. I think first you would get to learn a lot, which is not time wasted, and second, this adds up to your application when you're talking about it, because it might seem really insignificant at that point of time, but when you're doing a debate, you're talking about your public speaking skills. You're talking about, if you're doing a case study, you're talking about your time management skills. How are you working, within a time frame with different peoples? That talks about that. So it's just not about seeking out for those kind of opportunities, but to see what you can get away from that. So yeah, I would say that's also good extracurriculars.
Thank you for making the US so attractive. I could have studied in the US, it's too late. One point you haven't mentioned is US universities are famous for sports. Yeah?
Basketball.
Basketball, the many other sports. I've seen some of them, the facilities are amazing and the competition are incredible. So it's an opportunity as well for the Russian athletes to be exposed, isn't it? To something which is bigger and larger. So would you have any advice for the young athlete in Mauritius? Any specific channel to get into the university in the US? Any specific scholarship that matter?
For the scholarship, I'm not too much aware of it, but I can tell you that I did have some friends, who were good at, volleyball or basketball, and, they get to play, for college aid and stuff like this. I would say that whenever you're, going to any of these universities, student organizations are the best place to go for. And if you're choosing a major, which is within the, within sports, I think you can have already, a heads up on that by contacting the admissions team. So if you're really good at something like, yeah, if you're really good at it, what I would say is, obviously when you're making your list, as we have talked about, the plan A, plan B, and all of that, do make sure that you navigate more into, the sports criteria or things. Sometimes on their own pages, you have the student organization that would be there. So you could maybe connect, now since Facebook, Instagram, everything is so digitalized, I think it's much, much easier. At my time, I remember when I was looking for housing options, Facebook was one of the places you could go to because you would have alumni and current students, you could reach out to. So what I would say is browse and navigate through the, the university portals, and you can definitely find things on, Facebook. That's for sure. Yeah.
Just before you go, just before you take the mic, one quick note: very often people think that they will go through a sports quota, and they don't need to meet the grades. You still need to meet grades. And then still, so which means that you shouldn't neglect education, proper academics, while doing political stuff. I will unfortunately have to leave all of you here, but I'll let you continue with the panel. I've got some.
Please give Manisha a round of applause.